Here we go. Watch out. It's coming. Earth's final day arrives. The reason I say that is because Jesus actually gave us God's map of the future. We already saw last week when we were talking about the Lord's Prayer, he said we're supposed to be praying in Matthew 6 every day for his kingdom to come. We want that. He outlines, and we'll see that in just a minute, he outlines the end in his longest private sermon to his disciples. It's called the Sermon on the Olivet Mountain, or the Olivet Discourse it's called, and that's in Matthew 24. And then it's illustrated in the book of Revelation, and that's what we're looking at right now. Here's what Jesus said. Assuredly I say to you, now remember, they're on the Mount of Olives looking across the Kidron Valley at the city of Jerusalem and all the gold and everything else. And he said, not one stone will be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. That was impossible for the Jewish people to believe. Some of the largest stones ever used in the ancient world, even bigger than the ones in the pyramids. There were stones that were 192 metric tons. I mean, they were absolutely house-sized stones. And he said, this place is going to be torn down. They didn't believe it. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. And they said, when? When is this going to happen? When will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? So the disciples asked Jesus, what are the signs of the return of Christ? And Jesus, his first answer is, don't let anybody deceive you. There have been a lot of deceivers through the years, a lot of people that say they're the Christ, a lot of people that predicted his return. So Jesus said, the key thing is not to be deceived. So Jesus explains the map of the future. But then he says this in verse 8, all of these things, these are these trends he talks about. In fact, the book of Matthew, chapter 24, is kind of like a drone view of what the world looks like as Jesus is returning. As he's coming down from heaven through the clouds, coming to touch down on the Mount of Olives, he describes what the whole world looks like. When you see all these things, they're the beginning of sorrows. The word is Odin, O-D-I-N, which means birth pains. Verse 33, you also, when you see all these things, this is after he names them. He's telling them in verse 8, I'm going to give you this list. And then in verse 33, after he gives it, he says, when you see every one of these trends, know that my return is near, at the doors. And then he says this in verse 34, assuredly I say to you, this generation, the people who are alive that see all of these things will by no means pass away. And then he says it again, till all these things take place. So basically, the illustration is this. These are all the things. The church is going to be on earth as promised. The church is going to leave earth. They're going to assemble in heaven around the judgment seat of Christ when the tribulation begins in chapter 6. The tribulation ends with Jesus coming to rescue the Jewish people, the nation of Israel. That's the second coming. The rapture is not to rescue Israel or the Jewish people or the nation of Israel. It's to rescue the believers before God pours out what the tribulation is going to pour out, which is a lot of demons and horrors. The second coming issues Christ's rule. He rules literally on earth. He fulfills 28% of the Old Testament. After living here for 1,000 years and demonstrating his power, the majority of the world rebels, and the Lord says, that's it, and we'll cover that, and then heaven starts. So that's the illustration. Now let's talk about how you reconcile the Matthew 24 account with Revelation. What's interesting is they totally parallel. Everything that Jesus said in his Matthew 24 Olivet Discourse, it starts in Matthew 24 with false Christ. That's the white horse of Revelation 6. The warfare that is described in Matthew 24 is the red horse. The famine of Matthew 24:7 is the black horse of Revelation 6. Death, the pestilences and all that horror, is the pale horse. Remember I told you last week, chloros is the Greek word for green. Martyrdom, fifth seal, and then Luke 21. By the way, Luke 21 and Matthew 24 and Mark 13 are all the same thing, just different, kind of like the synoptic gospels all see the same thing. They're different lengths, they have different details, but the signs of Luke 21 are the sixth seal of Revelation 6. So what are some of the end of the world trends? Global deceptions will get more believable. No one ever imagined we would be where we are today as far as fake news, fake everything. Global diseases are going to get more lethal. I'll illustrate that in a minute. Global warming, it's going to get more deadly. It's going to cause people to die. Water shortage is going to get more and more widespread. I mean, right now, many nations are facing water problems. I mean, you all know that. Mexico City, for an example, many other nations. Global food scarcity is going to get more regular. It's not going to be that you can just, count on everybody getting all they want to eat in the Western culture. Global conflicts are going to get bigger and deadlier. Global hatred for Christ, both for Christians and for Jewish people, is going to get more personal. And boy, is global tracking going to get more complete. There's a satellite that's launching this year that is going to be able to read license plates. And the company, Albedo Industry, they also say some of their cameras can actually do a general facial recognition from, a low Earth orbit. Very interesting to think about satellites knowing where you are all the time. So basically, when we talk about birth pains, as Jesus said in Matthew 24, we're talking about greater visibility. In other words, these trends are going to be seen all over the world by everybody. They're going to notice them. Greater frequency, the intensity of the storms and the water shortage and the pestilences are going to get greater, so it's going to be more widespread. And the impact on culture, it's going to actually stop people in their tracks. Okay, what are some of these trends? Now, Jesus' favorite prophetic prophet was Daniel. In fact, he's the only one he names by name in his sermon on prophecy in Matthew 24. Notice what Daniel, at the end of his 12th chapter of his prophetic book, "But you, Daniel," the angel said to him, "shut up the words and seal the book till the times of the end." So the angel said, "The times of the end." What did the times of the end look like? Many shall run to and fro. Now I'm sure they felt it was the end of the world in the Roman Empire because the Roman Empire had unbelievable travel. But think about from the time of Daniel, in fact, let's go from the time of Jonah. There's an easy one. 3,000 years ago, Jonah got on a boat that's very much like the boat that Paul went on his missionary journeys, sailing around. Very much like the one that Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Very much like what Ben Franklin got on to sail over and ask the French to help America against the British. But everything started really changing about 200 years ago when the steam engine was invented. Then quickly, about 100 years ago, we went from cars to planes to rockets. If you remember, Goddard started his beginning rocket invention and development. And now, over 4 billion people fly around the world every year. I mean, it's just going like that. And we're getting bigger planes and higher capacity and triple deckers and all kinds of stuff. But Daniel said, not only are people going to travel faster and faster and faster and wider and wider and wider, but knowledge shall increase. Now, I have in my pocket my phone, described by Apple this way: a camera powered by a chip with 19 billion transistors in a 16-core neural engine capable of 35 trillion operations per second. You guys don't think anything of this. I mean, you're waiting for the 17. That was the 16. Do you understand? 35 trillion operations per second in code, in the lingo, is teraflops. For perspective, just over 20 years ago, teraflop computing was only done by building-sized government-funded military computers in Los Alamos, Sandia, all those nuke labs, Livermore. And I have that computing in my pocket. Plus, I have my entire library. When Bonnie and I launched In 2017, a gracious supporter of ours said, because I was sent out from my local church, and they said, wow, Pastor, we've always had, we'd come to your office and you were surrounded by 7,200 books. What are you going to do with them? I said, I'm not sure. He said, I know what I'm going to do with them. He said, I'm buying every one of them on Logos, and you can download them on your phone. And he did. I have all 7,200 of the books from my shelves in my pocket, indexable by letter and word and topic and everything else. What used to be only for the military of the industrialized nations now is in everybody's pocket. Now think what that means. Satan, with artificial intelligence, equals artificial truth is coming. Remember what Jesus said? Watch out. Deception is going to be there. Now, let me show you an example. This is from the Washington Post, Amazon founder's publication. He owns it. AI hustlers stole women's face to put on ads, but the law can't help them. With just a few seconds of footage, scammers can now combine video and audio using tools from companies like HeyGen and 11 Labs to generate a synthetic version of a real person's voice. They swap out the sound, manipulate the video. We all know about this. And it's very believable. Now, we know all that. You've all seen that. All the memes, everything that's crazy. Matthew 24:24 says total deception is coming. False Christs, false prophets will rise. They'll show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, the elect. That's code for true believers. Now, what did Paul say? Only Scripture can be trusted. Remember the Bereans? Bonnie and I love when we teach in Europe, we teach in Greece, and one of the field trips we always take is to Berea. Berea is a real place. It's a city. There's the whole place. It has the foundation of the synagogue Paul taught in, the steps and everything. We take the groups there, and we read them this. They were more fair-minded than those in Thessalonica in that they received the word with all readiness. Who are we talking about? Paul is teaching them. What did they do? They searched the Scriptures every day to find out whether what Paul said lined up with the Scriptures. Paul. They checked him out against the Scripture. No matter who is teaching, no matter who is preaching, no matter who is writing, no matter who is posting, we're supposed to check things against the Scriptures. Now remember what Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Test everything, all things, and hold fast to what is good. How do you know what is good? It matches with what God says. So there's going to be global travel. There's going to be this global knowledge. Everything is going to be available. You're going to be able to purvey, distribute, upload anything, and everybody can see it. The third thing, now back to Luke 21, this is what Jesus said in his Olivet Discourse prophetic talk. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars. Signs in the sun? When did solar observation start? Well, the telescopes didn't start until the 16th century. They did know the sun, the solar cycle, and they knew something was going on, but they didn't really ever know about sunspots and all that kind of stuff until they had magnification. So as we see more of our universe in the moon and the stars, but all that stuff's going to cause distress of the nations. People are going to become perplexed, and the sea and the waves are going to roar. Now listen to verse 26. And this is only possible when you all have a 16-core neural engine in your pocket. Men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of the things which are coming on the earth. Now think about how fast news traveled in the Bible world. It traveled at the speed of horse, at the speed of wind, at the speed of feet. In fact, there was a time when one of the Roman emperors died in battle, and it didn't get to the furthest posts of the legions for 6 months. That's how long it took to get it everywhere, to the furthest parts of the empire. How fast does news travel now? A lot faster than that. As the powers of the heaven are shaken, people are going to be watching, like I showed you last week, the pictures of the Myanmar, Bangkok earthquake, and people were watching that, as buildings were falling on live cameras, and those buildings were swaying, and swimming pools that are 40 stories high were spilling over the edges, and it was scaring people. I mean, people actually in other parts of the world went downstairs on the elevator. They didn't want to, they thought, what if we have an earthquake here and I'm on the 94th floor? It scared them. Can you imagine what it'll be like during the tribulation? I like this. The satellites caught this. This was, Bonnie and I were traveling between two sites headed to Word of Life in August. So it was last year. This was the Derrico that traveled southeast from South Dakota to Ohio for 770 miles. A satellite caught it. In 14 hours, it produced widespread winds better than 100 miles an hour. We were driving and we saw this. We crossed the line. Let's see, there's Iowa's to the left there, on the far left of the screen. We were coming across Iowa, and I said, honey, look at the cornfields. This was in early August. All the cornfields were totally like a steamroller, had mowed them down. I mean, for miles. All the corn, totally flat. We got to our hotel. The person at the counter said, we don't have electricity. It wiped it out, and the hotel's jammed. I mean, people were in the hallways. They didn't have enough rooms. I mean, people had lost so much in the power and the storm that people were laying in the hallways, laying in the lobby. This was one little storm, and it did damage to millions of acres, and we watched in our satellites. Now, Revelation 11 tells us something really interesting. From there, the people, tribes, and tongues and nations will see, this is the two witnesses, by the way. You all know this. You're ready for the test. Revelation 11 has two number ones. That's two, like the two witnesses. When they're killed by the Antichrist, for 3.5 days, everybody on earth, that's code for peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations. That's a code for saying everybody, because either you're a people, a tribe, or a tongue, or a nation. So everybody is going to see their dead bodies over a 3.5-day period. They're not allowed to be put into graves, and everybody who dwells on the earth rejoices and is shipping stuff to each other. Now that is impossible in Bible times. They wouldn't even know it in 3.5 days. They wouldn't know it instantly. They wouldn't know it in 3.5 days, and they could not ship stuff to each other. And yet, you don't think anything of it. Bonnie and I travel enough that when we know we were coming here, I had my medicine shipped here because we won't be home for 4 weeks. I didn't think anything of it. In fact, Prime here in Hudson, you can have it in 3 hours. Now, if you lived in San Francisco or other place, you could have it in 15 minutes. I mean, it's unbelievable. But look, the Bible foretells that people are going to be able to see events live, globally, and they're going to be able to send gifts to one another. Now look at this. Yesterday at 4:30 p.m., that's Facebook Live's chart. All the green dots are people broadcasting, and all the blue dots are people just watching stuff, reels and posts and feeds and everything else. And this is just Facebook, which is primarily older people. I mean, this is not, Instagram and what's that other one? TikTok, and I don't even know, Telegram and all that stuff, Twitter Live. Look at that. The green are people that are filming, the butterflies and the volcanoes and storms and birthday parties. Now look at this. Terrifying video reveals Elon Musk's huge army of satellites. That's what Earth looks like from space. He has over 7,000 low Earth orbit satellites. This year, he is opening to cell phones his network. So you will be able to have a satellite phone in your pocket, which will never, what did we determine here? Let me look. 1 bar. But if you had Elon's low Earth orbit Starlink, you'd have 6 bars. I just got on an airplane, and they're starting to install those things on the rooftops of airplanes. I got into this airplane with Bonnie, and I couldn't believe, I turned on my iPad, and poof, everything downloaded. And I went, you don't even have to pay for it. He offered it free to the people riding the airplane to get to know Starlink. We were sitting on the tarmac, and I had better reception than I had at home in a hotel. And we got up to, I was streaming videos at 36,000. I couldn't believe it. Wow. Do you know what that means? That means everybody's going to be even more connected. There's going to be no unconnected spot on this planet. Jesus continues. He said, for kingdom, or nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. Let's not talk about the earthquakes. We already saw that. Let's just talk about pestilences. I already told you about this. I won't repeat it. This was in Tampa last year. But look at this. This is this month. On the left, don't call it zombie deer disease, scientists warn, of a global crisis. That's an elk in Colorado that has this zombie deer disease where the animals become like zombies and they're dying and they're erratic and they run in different directions and they bump into things, they lose their perception, their sight, and they get this highly contagious, deadly disease, but only deer and other animals are getting it. But what the scientists are saying is bird flu is evolving and attempts to stop it are not working. The right-hand side reminds us that bird flu, which is like 20 to 50 times more deadly than COVID and more highly communicable, is now into mammals. It's into cows. It's into, it's already in the chickens. That's what this is about. But can you imagine when the zombie deer disease gets into the bird flu and wends around genetically and starts spreading to people? Now look at the bottom there. This is the 21st century pandemic you lived through right there. Between 2021 and 2024, 1 million people died. That's 1/3 of the big plagues of the 1600s. That's 1/56 of the great smallpox plague. That is 1/200th of the Black Death, bubonic plague, and on back you can go. So this, that gripped the whole world, is very small in historic proportion. And it's nothing like what God said is coming in the future. Now, how about global tracking, digital money, and all that stuff? He causes everyone. We all know this. This is a 666 thing. The Antichrist causes everyone, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on the right hand of their foreheads, so that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark of the name of the beast or the, what's that last word there in red? Number. Do you know what has happened in my lifetime? The digitalization of money, so that we can use Apple Pay, we can use touchless payment systems, and so that we can divide up meal checks, and Zelle people stuff, or I don't even know all the different terms. But it doesn't matter except for this, the number. When money gets digitalized, then a person that controls the electronic side of it can control money. See, that's what's happening. And it's not that you're supposed to be careful that someone's going to, hold your arm down and tattoo a barcode on you or on your forehead. This is not an involuntary thing. Notice what it says. No one can buy or sell except the one who has the mark of the name of the beast. And they receive the mark on their right hand or their forehead. They receive it. They aren't tied to the stake and burned if they don't get it. They choose to get it because you aren't going to be able to live without it. It's just a subtle enslavement. Global digital money. Now let's think about that. I love this article on the right. Amazon wants your palm. Bonnie and I were in Los Angeles, and I couldn't believe how fast everyone was checking out of Whole Foods. They had their bag, they went through a scanner, everything had RFIDs, so the scanner, it's like the ones that beep in a department store. If you walk out and don't pay for something, it goes beep, 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 beep. You just walk through those, and it saw everything in their bag, and then they waved their hand, the palm of their hand, over a little scanner. And they walked out. I mean, you wouldn't believe how fast people were going out of Whole Foods. Amazon wants your palm. If you register with them, you can go through that line, and it sees what's in your bag, and it sees your palm, and it charges you on your Prime card. And then you can get 2% back, you know? TSA wants your face. That's a whole new thing. Boarding planes. You just walk up, and it sees you, and your name comes. It works. We did it. You ought to come into America. I mean, from international. Last time we flew in, Bonnie and I couldn't believe it took 15 seconds, or was it 20 seconds, to come into America. We just came in front of a big camera, and it looked at us, and the TSA guy was sitting over there. He said, come on, I see you, John. You see me, John? Oh, yeah. He said, I know everywhere you've been. He said, in fact, I have your travel history everywhere. Boy, you travel a lot. He said, you know. He's sitting at this little counter over there, and that camera got me and knew I was a U.S. citizen. It knew my age, everything about me. So look at what the Wall Street Journal says. What does saying yes mean? Using your body's data to pay or breeze through security is like unlocking your phone, sort of. Now, look at the other side. Face the future. How facial recognition will replace keys, passports, tickets to concert. It already works in China, by the way. Do you go there very often? In China, they know who you are. If you walk across the street when it's not a green crosswalk sign, the camera takes your picture, and where you live at home, a giant screen has your picture up there and says, Billy the Jaywalker. And it says you broke the law downtown Beijing, and your neighborhood has these shame boards where they know that you crossed the street and didn't wait for the light and walk when it was safe. Now, that's minor. I mean, it saves me 5 minutes. I don't mind if everybody knows I'm in a hurry. You can show my picture at home. Oh, but they have a merit system. And if you too many times break the law in China, then when you get up to get on the subway door goes, The subway, you know how you walk through the little bars and scan your ticket? You don't scan your ticket there, it's your face. And you already have a subway ticket on your phone. And it won't let you on the subway if you're a repeat offender breaking the law. You can't ride the trains, you can't ride the subway, you can't ride the airplanes, certainly can't fly anywhere if you break the social code of China. It's within 5 years, Britain wants that system for their people. I'm sure we'll be not very far behind. Oh, here's the Albedo satellite. No one can buy or sell except the one who has the mark of the name of the beast, the number of his name. The startup company, Albedo, said they not only are reading all the license plates, they can also, from space, do some facial recognition, but they're cameras. Remember, the phones are getting better and better and better. If you can get a teraflop computer in your pocket, can you imagine what they have on that satellite and hooked to a farm down here, a server farm? Okay, let's talk about something else Jesus said. Jesus said, for there will be great tribulation such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. That's what Jesus said in Matthew 24:22. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. How did you kill people back in Bible times? Well, people were killed by arrows, by stones, by swords, maybe by a spear. You could catapult, but you catapulted spears or stones, or sometimes on Gladiator, they catapulted burning stuff. I mean, you could only kill someone with a sword that was in arm's reach, or someone that didn't zigzag too much and you could shoot fast enough. And so in the Bible times, it was impossible to kill everybody. That's a way of saying it. Impossible. I mean, 90% of people fled in every direction while they pursued a few, and they killed those, and when they cornered them, you understand what I mean? It was a very difficult thing to kill off a civilization in warfare back then. But think about this. We now have all those circles are how many thermonuclear warheads there are. North Korea has 15, China has 280, India has 135, Pakistan 145, Israel has 80, France 300, UK 215, Russia 6850, us 6550. That means very little to us. Well, look at this. This is a recent picture of what happens with one artillery shell the United States has developed, and they're deploying now in Europe for limited tactical nuclear strike. One artillery shell destroys everything within a 20, see it shooting from that artillery gun there? And it just destroys the downtown, and it just evaporates and melts everything in its sight. The whole downtown, it says, becomes kind of like a skating rink, because it melts it down there, the little kilometer circle. And all of that is from an artillery shell. We have 650 of them now in service in Europe. Artillery shells. Tactical. Wow. By the way, where is America in biblical prophecy? You ever wondered that? You ever thought that? You ever asked that? I've heard that since I was a little boy. So I set about reading the entire Bible through and through and through, trying to figure out all these places they say America. I've never convincingly seen America in prophecy. So why is America not in prophecy? Well, here are 5 sobering possibilities. One is that we're just part of the Antichrist deal, and we align with him. And so we don't show up separate. We show up as part of the Antichrist. Number 2, we implode our debt bomb. You've heard about that. It's going up faster and faster and faster. And if you don't have money, everything grinds to a halt. Or we explode. Russia stops threatening us. Russia has threatened us almost once a week. Britain more than that they're going to do something. And they're showing on national TV these pictures of missiles hitting London and missiles hitting Paris. The Russians are showing that on their news as a threat to the West. Maybe they actually do it. Or we fade out. Did you know a relatively low-tech EMP, electromagnetic pulse, would wipe out America? It would fry all of your computers, all of our cell phones, all of our everything that's electronic and what is not electronic these days. China could do it, North Korea could do it, Russia could do it, Iran could do it. Or how about we just dry out? For the last 2 years, the mega drought out west has made Lake Mead and everything else just go out. Can you imagine if water if Phoenix doesn't get a river of water to them, if LA doesn't get their river of water? Okay, number 8. The 8th trend is the explosion of global peace, prosperity, and materialism. Listen to how Paul described the Antichrist. For when they say peace and safety, that's going to be the Antichrist platform. He brings peace. That's why he's on the white horse in Revelation 6. Then sudden destruction comes upon them like labor pains. Remember what Jesus said, on a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. Part of the Antichrist is he's going to prey upon the fear people have of the pestilences, the fear they have of warfare, the fear they have of WMDs, the fear they have of the weather that's going crazy, the religious conflict between Islam and Judaism, between Western civilization and Eastern civilization, all of those things. And he comes on this platform of peace and safety. Now, look at the times we're living in. Do you see, this is our sick Pope right now. He's quite ill. Look what he said when he was in Singapore. He said, all religions are on a path to God. Christians are on a different path, but we're all children of God. And in the middle of that, look what our culture is doing. Recently, Spain gave human rights to apes. Aren't we glad for that? And look what they're doing over in the Middle East. A mosque, a synagogue, and a church are all being built together. Mosque, synagogue, church. All together in Abu Dhabi, the 3 great world religions, so that they can get along together. But in the midst of that, we have what we see in Revelation 18. Revelation 18 says, in the midst of everybody dying of starvation in the world, there are going to be people that have everything. We have that already. There's never been as big a disparity as there is the richest 1% of the world. That means that there are about 80% 80 million people on earth that control the 48% of all the wealth. So they have almost half of all the wealth, this richest 1%. Then all the rest of the people, the other 99%, have the other half. But look at this. We've got Western civilization here. 46% of the world, the Western civilization people have a lot. And then finally, the poorest 80% of the population of the world. So 6.4 billion people split 5% of everything that's on the planet, while the rest have so much. You say, oh, that's confusing. Yeah, it is. What it means is there's a great disparity between the rich and the poor that we see in the book of Revelation. It's going to culminate in the starvation and the horrors. Now this one, you've seen this more than anything else. I don't even need to illustrate this. It says in Zechariah 12, on that day, that's the return of Christ, I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all peoples. All who lift it will surely hurt themselves, and all the nations of the earth will gather against the Jewish people, Israel, Jerusalem. Now this is fascinating. This was October. Do you remember October last year? That's Iran attacking Jerusalem. 300 ballistic missiles. Hundreds were shot. Dozens hit in Israel. U.S. deterrence fails to stop the world on edge. And look what was right after that. The largest march in Washington, D.C.'s history. 500,000 people, there they are, marched through Washington, D.C. for the Palestinian cause. Do you know what the Palestinian cause is? Have you ever heard their slogan? To the sea. That's where Israel is. It's between, actually they're talking about maybe the Euphrates, but actually it's the Jordan River and the Mediterranean. They don't want the Jews there. You know what it is? Getting rid of the Jewish people, of Israel. They don't want Israel to be a nation. And that's exactly what Jesus said. They will deliver you up and kill you. You'll be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And all people are going to gather against you. That's the world we live in. But look at what the Lord is doing. There's going to be an explosion of evangelism. The gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations. The gospel must first be preached to all nations. This is the IMB, International Mission Board, the Southern Baptist Mission Society. They've identified with the red dots every unreached, unengaged people group on earth, and there are right now people volunteering to go to translate the language. They can digitally translate the Bible faster than ever. It used to take a lifetime. Now they could do it in a matter of months and get the scripture into their languages. And all of those places are being sought out for the Lord. So everything Jesus said was coming. You can see in the news. So what does that mean to us? Well, Jesus said the generation that sees these things will by no means pass away. Now, I don't know how long the generation is. There's a lot of generation lengths in the Bible. 40 years, 60 years, 100 years. But the people that are alive that see all of these things happening at once, Jesus said, are going to be the ones. They're going to experience the tribulation period. Does anybody have a question from last week? Does anybody have a question from today? Do you know what my favorite part of when I pastored the last church we were at before we were sent out was in a university town, and the elders said, you know what, you need to do something for the university. Why don't you start on Sunday nights putting 3 microphones up, let anybody come in that wants to from the streets, and they can ask any question they want about God or the Bible, and we'll host question and answer times. I said, I love it. So for 4 years I did that. It was the funnest time in my life. People just, we had one lady stumbling off the streets. I don't know where she thought she was. And she came up and she said, she told her whole story about drug addiction and abuse and everything else. And she said, what does God think of that? And what a perfect, I began sharing what God thinks of that, the gospel. And I noticed while I was talking that about 4 or 5 women started migrating. There were hundreds of people there, and they started migrating over to be near her. And as soon as I got done with my question, she said, thank you. And they took her, and they were ready. all of them were former just what she was, and they shared the gospel with her and tried to lead her to the Lord. But before we go, now you have 8 minutes. You can get out done early. Does anybody have any question? This is your only chance. I probably will never get done early again. Stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Brady.
Yes. What are your thoughts on people saying that Elon Musk is a potential antichrist?
I think that's a wonderful question. Isn't Brady? I mean, he has great questions. Satan has always had an antichrist in every generation. And so I think that a man that controls the global communication system, a man, by the way, do you know what X originally? He got that X URL or whatever you want to call it, domain, because he started PayPal with his buddies. He wanted to have a complete financial system where you could have everything in your pocket, all of your wealth. You know, he's kind of like the original crypto, the original electronic and everything. So a man that wants to control the financial system, who has his fingers right now in the largest financial system in the world, which is the U.S. Treasury Department, and he's getting access to it, has global satellites. He's the only one that has rockets that are... Have you seen how he plays that in his Twitter thing, where the little arm catches the rocket, you know? Every time it lands, it comes down, it goes... He would make a great candidate, you know? And he seems to talk about Christian things. The one thing you have to know about the Antichrist is he is not anti-against Christ. He's the word anti in place of Christ. He becomes the Jesus everybody always wanted, the one that solves their problems. And I'm sure he'll start working on medical things. Maybe he is, I don't know. So he's already started. So he's just going to cover the bases. So is Elon Musk the Antichrist? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're not commanded to look for the Antichrist. We're commanded to not be deceived by the Antichrist. So what I would ask you is, all the verses you're forced to learn for Word of Life, when are they going to become your favorite verses that you meditate on for life? See, you have to internalize this where you want to be a Berean, being able to defend the truth wherever you are. So did you all hear what Christian said? He's talking about political first or evangelism first. I'm apolitical, by the way. When I was in the most Republican state in the nation a while back in Oklahoma, I registered as a Democrat. Just so I could, can you imagine at the coffee shop, they see you reading the Bible and they say, are you one of those wild Republicans? No, I'm a registered Democrat. Oh, I have a question from the Bible. It opens so many doors because they stereotype Republicans as anti-everything and Democrats pro-everything. And so I registered but Christian's question, should we be politically concerned with transforming society and Christianizing America and rolling back all that stuff? To the extent that we declare the truth of God, that those things are sins, but you can never, even Jesus doesn't get the whole world to go along with him. That's what we're going to see this week. And they all rebel against him unless he by power forced them to obey. So the first thing is the gospel. When I was smuggling Bibles, I was side by side with communist Christians. That's almost an oxymoron. Communist Christians. There are such things. You understand that? And there are Christian everythings. You know what I mean? And so what we have to do is stop being so political. So many people in America are expending all their money and all their time sticking their finger in holes in the dike, and they're trying to Christianize America. You will never Christianize America. You can only Christianize individuals, lead them to Christ. So back to what you said, Christian, they should seek to lead as many people to the Lord in Muslim countries, seek to lead as many, and not take a stand against that Sudanese southern, political party that's causing all the trouble. If you're asked, you say, murder is wrong, homosexuality offends God, it's an abomination. Abortion is killing of a life. If you're asked, but I don't want to be known what I'm against. I want to be known what I'm for, and I'm for people, I'm for the gospel, I'm for Jesus Christ. Do you know him? I would like to share him with you. You understand what I mean? Don't offend people for political reasons unnecessarily. So, Christian, what a great question. And We spent a whole hour on that. Zach, Niehaus? I have to try and pronounce all your names. Babylon, if you think about it, starts back at the Tower of Babel. And a lot of it has to do with what we call civilization, commercialization, money, materialism. There are two twin infections Satan has been infecting the world with. The first one is religion. Religion is Satan's biggest card, and that's you making your own way to God. Then the other one is materialism. You don't need God. You have everything, this vacuum in your life filled by power or money or pleasures or whatever, and you get people to do your thing. So Babylon is a place, the Tower of Babel. It's the place where religion started, the false religions of idolatry. I'm doing my whole hour, Zach. You got me started, but that's a great question. But I think it's a place, but it's described as having 7 hills, and also it's described as being western. So that's why so many people have thought it's Rome. But Rome is a garbage-filled problem with their utility. I go to Rome almost every year. It's a very desperate place. I don't know how the Antichrist would rule the whole world from there, unless it's an ideological, Rome that he spreads everywhere. But it's a place that's in Revelation 18. It's a place that starts in Genesis 10 and 11, but it's a philosophy that has permeated our world, this materialism. So we'll cover that in 2.5 days.